When it comes to city building and colony sim games, you're always trying to build some kind of utopia. Perfect roads, happy citizens, maybe a nice fountain in the middle of the town. But with this game, that's not the case. Your only goal here is to survive. Dig In is an upcoming colony sim set in World War I, so if the idea of managing troops on the front line, digging trenches, scrounging for supplies, and trying to hold everything together under constant pressure sounds good to you, keep watching. Because honestly, from what I've seen so far, this game has a ridiculous amount of potential. And to me, what makes it so interesting is that there's basically nothing else quite like it out there right now. Dig In didn't come out of nowhere though. It's been out for about a year. They had a demo that a few people got to try out, but it was a recent trailer, one that's been getting a lot of traction, that put it on my radar. And the more I dug into it, the more I thought, yeah, this is exactly what I've been looking for. The closest thing I can compare it to is titles like Foxhole, maybe even Company of Heroes, mixed with RimWorld, I don't know. But in this game, you're managing your troops, pushing them forward in a game that's all about what war was like in the trenches. Whether you pick Germany, Great Britain, the Republic of France, Austria-Hungary, or Imperial Russia, there is a lot to get excited about in this game. Once you pick your nation, like the devs show off France taking on Germany here, you're dropped in with very limited information, and now you need to take down your enemy. C'est n'importe quoi, as the French would say. You can't see what's going on as the game comes with fog of war, so you've just got a rough idea of where you need to push forwards, like a crossroads or an open field marked on the map. But beyond that, you're just working things out as you go. Something that stood out to me was how much the developers seem to listen to their community. Little details like being able to place tents so your troops can rest and recover. That's the kind of little things that sound small but makes a big difference in a management game. You can place down guard posts which then extend your line of sight, which matters a lot as you've got no idea what's coming. And before you even think about digging trenches, you need to get your basic infrastructure up and running. Setting up your camps, your supply lines, getting your men fed, and just making sure that they're all okay. It gives me that familiar colony sim loop, just with a lot more going on around you. Something else I noticed was that the research tree looks like it has a lot of thought behind it. It's not just unlock bigger guns or just upgrade your soldiers. There are options like field survival techniques or fortified trench lines, things that actually fit into the setting. Again, like I said, you can tell the devs are passionate about World War history, something I really appreciate. And because you're dealing with soldiers and not just buildings, giving orders is a core part of what you're doing. You can send your troops out to scout, raid, or deploy across different sections on the map. There's also the artillery barrage command, which, yeah, you'll need in case things go sour. Plus, if you notice the clock at the bottom of the screen, yeah, time plays a role. Like you can schedule when you want to push for a specific attack, or you can just send your men in immediately if things are getting dicey. For me personally, I will just send troops out all the time, but it's great to see that you can have some tactical and strategic depth in a game like this. And when it comes to your resources, well, how do you get them? You can't just wait for your country to send you over or just send an Uber Eats to your direction. So yes, there will be a lot of resource management in the game. Things will be scattered across the map, like trees or an old horse cart that can be salvaged for materials like wood. Supply runs do look like there are in the game, so you'll be able to prioritize what you actually need at any given time. This to me makes sure that there's always pressure, making sure that you got the right amount of resources at any given time so that your troops are not just left high and dry. Then very quickly, the building side of things shows up, and that's when the colony sim DNA shows its true colors. Everything you're constructing is aimed at one thing, trying to keep your front line protected and your soldiers alive. Looking at that building menu, it's got a wide range of categories going on, from trench development all the way through to survival and comfort. It's great to see that there's not just a handful of buildings here, but there's a lot of thought going on behind it, especially when it comes to placing around your environment. And that's because one challenge the developers had to work around is that most of World War I was fought on pretty flat terrain. There wasn't a lot of dramatic hills or mountain passes to work with, but from what I can see, they've done a solid job making the maps feel interesting in their own way. Muddy roads, trees dotted around, ditches cutting through the landscape, it all adds to that immersion. And because your terrain is mostly flat, where you place your defenses becomes even more critical. There's no natural high ground to fall back on, so yeah, your trench placement matters a lot. But before you can get proper trenches going, you start with the basic ditches, because yeah, the enemy isn't waiting for you to get settled in. Bombs will be coming down pretty much from the start. You can fire back with your own artillery, and honestly, the back and forth of it all reminds me a lot of Company of Heroes, like I mentioned again, one of my all-time favorite real-time strategy games. Just the way you angle your troops, find cover, set up firing lines, it's got a similar feel to it, especially those machine gun placements. That was always my first priority. One thing that feels very unique about the game though is to drop custom tactical markers on the map. You give that marker a name and then your soldiers can use it later on, whether it's for a fallback point, a rally position, or somewhere to push forwards. It's a small detail, but it can make a big difference in how you communicate your strategy on the ground. Now, something I always appreciate in management and colony sims is how they manage the people of the game, and Dig In is no exception. They've all got names, backstories, traits. They feel like actual people, not just units on a board. The game takes it a step further though and gives them status effects, conditions, and attributes that are all tied into who they are, what their background is, and what's happening around them. You can check on how much sleep they're getting, whether they've eaten or not, and how they're holding up overall. And that's because you don't just have to worry about their hunger, but also their sanity. War takes its toll, and this game isn't pretending otherwise. Rest helps to bring it back, and so does various morale improvements. You can keep your eye on all of this through the vital signs panel at the bottom left. Again, it's another cool system, making sure that you care about these people and they're not just points on the map. Now remember, I mentioned that the time of day matters. Well, night becomes a thing too. Your visibility will drop, which changes everything about how you plan and react. It's one of those, again, those details that can add to the atmosphere and overall immersion. To push that realism even further, the game has external events that can affect your campaign. Depending on the nation you've chosen, you'll get notifications based on real historical events happening somewhere else on the front. Something like the news of a major defeat could tank your soldiers' morale, even if you're doing fine on your end. It's a clever way to tie the bigger war into your smaller slice of it. Eventually you'll make contact with the enemy, and I have to say, this is where the game starts to get into motion. I haven't touched on the visual style, but this is where it comes into play. It's not going for a gritty, depressing mood, more almost light-hearted in a way, like a 3D version of a Tintin comic rather than something hyper-realistic. The explosions are looking great, and the sound design adds a lot to the immersion as well. To me personally, I hope the devs implement some voices like in Company of Heroes that are set to the nationality that you choose. I can just picture my troops yelling, "Oh putain, oh merde, oh oh la vache," things like that. At night, it's a bit hard to see what's going on, which I guess makes sense. You can spot red hit point indicators on the enemy units, and when soldiers go down, their ghosts start floating up in the sky. I'll be honest, I'm a bit torn on this one. I don't know, it takes a lot of that realism away, makes the game feel a bit more playful, but hey, at least you can see where all the damage is happening. At the moment, the map is currently divided into quadrants, and the more territory you control, the more points you can rack up for things like research. It creates this constant push and pull where you're incentivized to move forward rather than just dig in and wait. Again, feels very much like Company of Heroes. Slowly but surely, you're pushing across the map, digging new trenches as you go, fortifying each position before moving to the next. Meanwhile, your troops are resting, smoking, maybe writing letters back home for their loved ones. But eventually, you'll make your final push, hopefully sweeping the enemy off the map, and that's what your victory will be. Now look, I don't know about you, but all of this has me very excited. The demo that was up has since been taken down, probably while the team is making more changes based on feedback. Unfortunately, there's no confirmed release date yet, but the devs have mentioned that a new demo will be available during the upcoming Steam Next Fest, which isn't far off. If you do want something to scratch that itch in the meantime, I'd say look at Ground of Aces. This game is set in World War II rather than World War I, and it's more about running a remote military airbase rather than trench warfare, but hey, it's probably the closest thing available right now. And if you want to get some historical context before Dig In comes out, maybe go check out the podcast Hardcore History with Dan Collin, specifically the Blueprint for Armageddon series. I still think about it every now and then, and it just blew me away on how brutal that war actually was. But coming back to it, honestly, there's nothing quite like what Dig In is going for. It's got the real-time strategy feel of Foxhole and Company of Heroes. It's got the management and colony sim depth of games like Ground of Aces, maybe even RimWorld, and it's all wrapped in a World War I setting that we almost never see outside of first-person shooters. However, I still have a few concerns going in. Vitar Games are a first-time studio, and they're also self-publishing. Also, there's no solid release date yet, which might mean that it's still a fair way out. And finally, it will launch into early access, so expect some rough edges when it does arrive. But we can worry about that later. Right now, this is a game to watch. But what do you think? Will you be jumping into this one? Let me know in the comment section below about what you think about what's going on. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and maybe even subscribe if you just want to stay in the loop for everything strategy and management game related. As always, a big shout out to my channel members. You guys always mean so much to me. But other than that, it's Marco here from Easily Distracted Games, and as always, don't stop gaming.